Good morning, good afternoon, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. My guest this evening is Roger Jacobson, a fellow member of Senior Studies Institute, sponsored by Portland Community Media. And I've known Roger for some time, and he's an interesting sort of a character with lots of opinions and views that I think you, my viewers, are going to appreciate. Now, for your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone shows where I talk to interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals, and about whatever it is that we decided to talk about. Now, we have decided to talk about what's important on this date, the 16th of May of 2012. And in our current events discussion groups, we have all kinds of things we talk about. And we're going to need about 4 hours to cover everything we cover in our current events discussion groups. But yeah. So my viewers know that the show goes in two major segments. The first one is what I call the bio segment, the Who Are You, where I talk to you about who you are, Roger.
Oh, okay.
So people have an idea where you're coming from, and you give your views and opinions on what you think is important. And the second half is we'll get into the subject of the show, and we may talk about something going on in the world or in the country or whatever that comes up, whatever you think would be worth discussing for our viewers. And we'll be in conversation, you and I, and now and then I may ask you to talk to the viewers, but by and large, let's just visit among ourselves, you and I here. Okay?
Great.
I'm a little nervous. How are you?
I'm okay.
You're not nervous?
I'm a little nervous.
I'm glad. I've been after you a long time to get you here on the show, and so I'm glad you're here again.
I'm glad for the opportunity. Thank you, Don.
Yeah. So I always have a trick question somewhere along the way in my interview, and I can ask it now or I can ask it later on. Would you wait till later? Let me surprise you with it.
What, yeah, whatever.
I'll surprise you later on. And if I were to ask your best friend, who is Roger? What would your best friend say? Roger is, be your best friend.
I guess somebody that's interested in ideas. My career was in public education. I tend to enjoy mentoring, dealing with people who are maybe looking, and you know, if I can help them find answers or explore. I don't want to give them answers, but maybe that's who I am. Taught for 36 years, had opportunities to teach abroad a couple times. And I really am interested in economics and how that's changing and how it can solve some of our problems.
So your best friend would say all these things about you? Say he's a nice
I think
guy,
they would.
he's a jerk.
I think they'd say that I have an inquiring mind.
Roger has an inquiring mind.
Yeah. I spend a lot of time reading what's going on, and that's what makes Senior Studies Institute interesting to me.
Yeah, so I was curious about what your best friend would say about you rather than what you're saying about you, but anyhow, we got that information.
Okay.
So next question. Do you have a middle name?
Claude.
Anything significant about your middle name?
Not that I know of.
You're named after anyone that you know?
No.
Okay. Okay. It's an unusual name.
Roger Claude Jacobson. Yeah.
Do you like it?
It's fine. I don't use Claude, but Roger and Jacobson are fine. Gone by that for a long time.
Okay. When and where were you born?
I was born in Iowa, Mason City, Iowa, 1941, so it's 70 years ago.
Okay, yeah, a little while ago. Anything significant about your cultural heritage that's worth telling the viewers about? Iowan or what?
Yeah, I grew up in Iowa. Grew up in Clear Lake, Iowa, and lived most of my life there. A couple of experiences outside the country. Have had a chance to travel internationally, and that's good.
Where'd you travel internationally?
I spent like 4 months in China in the last 10 years, and
really?
I lived in Australia for a year, traveled to Indonesia, lived in Kuwait for a couple of years, and traveled in the Middle East, and I've traveled in Europe several times. So.
Was this on vacation, or you're working? Or
I worked in Kuwait for 2 years at the American School of Kuwait, and I taught in an exchange program, Fulbright exchange program in Australia, in a small school in an exchange program where I had Alan's job and Alan had my job, and it worked really well.
Did you enjoy it?
Oh yeah, yeah. Aussies are wonderful folks.
You have a religious preference. If I ask a question that you don't want to answer, you can tell me you don't want to answer, okay?
Yeah.
Do you have a religious preference, or are you religious?
I am, I think, non-religious. Humanist, probably atheist. I just think it presents an opportunity to see the world in a more realistic manner, and faith is something that I have trouble with. People who make decisions in their life on faith, I think, are not grounded there. They're not thinking.
And your formal education, talk a little about that.
Went to Teachers College in Iowa, and a master's degree in education, and that's about it.
Do you have a partner, a wife, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, or what?
I was married for 29 years.
29 years?
Yeah, but that ended 12 years ago, and I've had a couple partners since then.
You involved with anybody right now, or you're flying solo?
Yeah, solo. But time will tell.
Time will tell. Okay, your voice. Right? Watch it out there. All right. Any children?
I have a daughter, 32, and a son, 43, and they both live in the Midwest. My daughter has 3 kids, a 4, a 6, and an 8-year-old, and they live just 5 blocks from me in Iowa. And by the way, I spend about 5 months of the year in Iowa, and 5 or 6, and then another 5 or 6 here. So I like Portland a lot.
Yeah.
Ames, Iowa is a very nice, small university city, but I like a bigger city, so that's why I'm in Portland. I came here in 2004 to work on a ballot initiative, and in the 6 weeks that I was here, I fell in love with Portland.
Oh yes, of course.
Have you lived here long?
About 17 years.
Okay.
But I was in Southern California before that. I moved to Southern California in 1950, January, and was in Southern California all that time till I moved up here. But I just got back Sunday from a conference in Las Vegas for 3 days, and that's hot and dry. And I was mostly indoors in the hotel for the events. But I'd been to Nevada and Las Vegas and the whole area before a number of times. And before that, I was in Cuba for 10 days.
Wow.
And thinking about the climate compared to, and each time I came back to Portland, I thought, I'm never going to leave Portland unless, like you, my wife and I are talking about now going away for 2 or 3 months out of the year instead of moving away. But it's ideal, like you, having another place to live, half the time and half the time here.
Yeah.
Do you have grandchildren, you mentioned? Do they like you?
I think so. They particularly like Papa's pool. I live in a community that's about 5 blocks from where they live in Ames, and there's a community pool. And in the summertime, of course, they want to come to Papa's pool. So that gives me an excuse to get in the water too, play with them. That's
good. Yeah, yeah.
I have one grandson that lives in Nebraska with his mom and dad, my son, Kevin, and his wife.
How old is this grandson?
He's 4.5. So.
Does he like you?
Yeah, although, you know, I don't see him nearly as much as I see the other grandkids.
Yeah. Okay. Your political persuasion, are you left, right, center, or what?
I think very left. Yeah, you know, when you go to the polls, you have some choices, and I tend to vote always on the left side of things.
So then that,
but it isn't left enough as far as I'm concerned.
That banner doesn't offend you, does it? The opening shot there, Che Guevara?
No.
When I was in Cuba, there were banners and statues and all sorts of things for Che Guevara. He is the #1 hero, apparently, not just for Cuba, but so much of Latin America that's in rebellion now from American domination. And when I came back to the States, I didn't have that banner for customs to see because they would not have let me back in the country. Mayday, guess where I was? In Havana, in a crowd of 1 million Cubans marching in support of the revolution.
Okay.
A perfectly beautiful day, and I was.
And May 1 is the International Day of the Worker.
Yeah.
1 million people.
Yeah.
Amazing.
They estimated 1 million people.
Amazing.
And I counted them all.
Oh yeah, sure.
But I feel good about having been there with all those people, and
Sure.
and of course I didn't see all the people I didn't, but all the people I bumped into. I guess there were 3 different classes of visitor, and we took the cheapest, of course, which our lodgings were in with the peasants rather than the fancy hotels and like that. So I hung out with the ordinary Cubans for the most part. And they seemed to be pretty happy or satisfied, even though they're driving 1953 and 54 cars, those that can still drive.
Yeah.
They're very poor, but you know the rest of the story there. Health care for all and education for all from birth to as long as you want to go. And I had a delightful time.
Good.
For 10 days, yeah.
Good. Haven't been there, like to visit.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people in the Portland area who've been to Cuba.
Yeah.
And they speak very fondly of the trip and the people. And I had one guy tell me that, he said, I got all stressed when I got into the airport in Miami. It just was very different. He'd been so relaxed in Cuba. And,
yeah. Yeah, it was nice. So, do you have any memberships other than SSI in political, social, or civic organizations that are worth mentioning? Do you belong to any of those things?
Yeah, I support the American Socialist group nationally, the Humanists of Greater Portland, Common Cause, People for the American Way.
That's all my organizations too. How about the ACLU?
Oh, sure. I think that's the longest one. And then I support some gay advocacy groups also. And I get it set up so that every month a check goes to each one of those organizations.
Yeah.
They're small checks.
Small checks, yeah.
But it helps out.
Common Cause, yeah. And Southern Poverty Law Center?
I don't currently.
Dees,
you know, once in a while I have to reevaluate, and
I
know.
I
There are
know.
just so many.
There's so many good ones too anymore.
Americans, People for the American Way, Move to Amend.
Oh yes, yes.
So.
Yeah, so those are good organizations that are working for good causes, and we need something to counter as best we can the moneyed interests, especially with the Citizens United decision by the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Okay. Why were you born?
Why?
Yeah.
Oh God.
That's your trick question.
Yeah. I don't ever. Let's see. Why?
Yes.
Well, I know the process. I don't remember it, but.
Your memory wasn't that good, though.
No, and I'm glad I was born. In my lifetime, I've made some good choices and some not so good choices. And I think that's true of everybody. It's
yeah.
kind of a mixed bag. But you got to be proactive and, you know, connect with what's good. And
sure. The priorities in our country anymore is a social responsibility and economic necessities, and I think the priorities are out of order for the people who are really running our country, such that the economy comes first, and social responsibilities are second or third, for that matter.
Yeah.
My humble opinion.
Well, with economic changes and decisions, there's the social aspect, and I think that they're driven to profit, and profit's the only thing that counts. And in my mind, greed is a major problem.
Yes. Why greed?
I don't know. We tend to glorify wealth. We worship the wealthy, and we pretty much.
We being Americans, huh?
Yeah, I think that's the way it is. I remember some bumper stickers that I've never had on my car, but something to the effect of we can do without the wealthy. You know. Now they provide some things that are important. They provide capital for expansion and that sort of thing, but they don't pay enough taxes to help the rest of us.
Right, right. So you don't drive a car?
I do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I drive it back and forth. Here it's convenient to have a car, and there it's convenient to have a car. And but I use the public transit primarily for getting around in Portland.
Good.
I haven't figured out the route to Lake Oswego yet, but all of the SSI classes I make on public transit. Humanist. You know, downtown is so easy. I live in Goose Hollow, so it's easy to get down.
Oh, yes. Talk about SSI, Senior Studies Institute, sponsored by Portland Community College.
Well, I got connected with that organization because of, well, I always blame Dick Ewell.
Dick Ewell. Hi, Dick.
He invited me to come along, and now I'm one of the junkies, and I quite often go 3 times a week and sometimes 4 to the current events discussions. I don't make too many of the classes, but I really like the current events discussions.
Same here.
I just find it stimulating. It's such a neat, diverse group of people. If anything, we lack maybe the rightest viewpoint. But we have the solutions, Don.
So generally speaking, the people who attend the current events discussion groups are left or center. You don't find many rightists. Is that true?
I think, yeah. There's some balance, but it leaves out a lot of them on the right, I think. Left and central is basically.
Yeah, I enjoy it too.
Yeah.
I'd like to go to more of them, but I find I spend a lot of time preparing for my shows, and well, I'm going to make some time to attend more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I find it stimulating, and some of the nicest people in Portland. Interesting folks.
So how do you see the mainstream media? Is it the left, the right, or centrist, or what? The corporate media?
We have some of each, I think. I think that overall it's probably more to the right.
Yeah.
That's my perspective. And things like, you know, this establishment is really important, I think, in bringing a different message. And I'm happy to tell you that in Ames, Iowa, we're about to launch a community radio station.
Really?
Yeah. And we have a woman that grew up in Ames whose career was with Pacifica Radio.
Oh, yes.
And she came back to help establish the radio station. And people in the community are coming on board, and there's lots of volunteers, and they're about to launch. I think they'll launch in August.
Wonderful. So that ordinary citizens' voices can be heard by the general population.
Yeah.
And then that's filtered through the corporate media.
Yeah.
Do you view or listen to any alternative media? Publications or radio or TV or any of that stuff?
Well, my radio is constantly tuned to public radio, NPR,
Yeah.
the programming. And on the internet, I tend to connect with groups that have a liberal viewpoint, trying to get the message out so that we can maybe turn around things like Citizens United. And take away the power that corporations have to write the laws that they want us to live under. And over time, the laws have changed according to their whim.
Yes, yes.
And at one point in time, corporations were given a limited life. I can't remember, 10 or 20 years, I believe. The charter had to be renewed. The charter was for a very specific purpose. And it had to have public interest in mind. And of course, over time, that's all been changed. And it's been changed by the lobbying efforts. And
Of the wealthy, the super rich, and the people who actually run the country. Huh?
Sure. And right now, I think we're lost unless we can take the power away from the wealthy and the corporate interest. A lot of these corporations are now multinational. I mean, they're all over the world.
Yeah.
And they're impacting how the laws are written in this country. And I find that very distressful. The citizens, the human citizens, ought to be the one that votes. And in Iowa, we have the caucuses, and I always try and be in Iowa for the caucuses.
Sure.
It's in January. And I remember last fall, one of the Republican candidates at the state fair, in response to a question, said, well, corporations are people. And I couldn't buy that. I mean, it's just, corporations are not people. They're artificial.
Yeah.
They have a design purpose, and right now it's profit at all costs. And we're not serving the people.
No.
In a better situation, our economy would be driven by demand. And I think the thinking now is that we need to make tax breaks for the wealthy, and of course we have that. And we need to make tax breaks for corporations so that they have the money to create jobs. But to me, that's backwards. If I understand right, corporations have more money in reserve now than they've ever had. $1 trillion+ dollars. And that doesn't create jobs, if they got it in reserve. To me, it looks like, if you give those that are not wealthy, and particularly the middle class and the lower income people,
Yes.
if they have the break, then they have money to spend. And what do? They spend it.
Yes.
They can't afford to put it in reserve. They spend it to meet past purchases that they made on credit. They spend it to maybe make certain that their kids get a decent education, that the kids get family vacation, that the kids get some time with parents, because the parents can be home and don't have to be working all the time, don't have to be working 2 or 3 jobs. That end of the scale, not the wealthy, but the other end of the scale, they're the people who create demand. And when there's demand, then somebody says, well, geez, we could make some money there, Maybe we should invest some money in equipment and jobs and hire people and so forth.
Yeah. And then they have taxes that they pay to the government.
But it all, in my mind, it all stems from demand. We got to stimulate demand. Don't give money and tax breaks to the wealthy, because right now it's going into reserves. Let's make certain that the underclass, so to speak, gets the break, because they'll spend it. They want to buy homes. They want to replace the car that's a junker. They want to, they want to see that their son or daughter gets to go to a community college for a couple of years to get a better job and that sort of thing.
Name a couple of things that you think are most important nowadays for us Americans.
Well, number one, I think, is reversing the power structure to take it away from the wealthy, the corporations, and so that we can vote and make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
You and I know that a lot of that money goes into campaigns now, not directly, but indirectly.
Yes.
And so we get all this crap on television that has iffy, questionable information, trying to bully us into voting their way.
Mm-hmm.
It troubles me.
Yeah.
What was your question just a moment ago?
I forgot.
Oh, okay.
Do you belong to a particular political party? I belong to the Justice Party. Have you heard about the Justice Party?
No, I have not.
That's a new party. The former mayor of Salt Lake City, Utah, Rocky Anderson, is running for the presidency on the Justice Party ticket. And I think we're on the ballot in some 31 states so far.
Oh, good.
Yeah. It's the same features of Naders and Kucinich and those legitimate leftists, Jim Hightower. And we got to keep pushing and pushing and pushing, because there were third parties in our history in the past, and some of them petered out and some became legitimate parties. So we got to keep resisting and fighting back. Google Justice Party, Justice Party USA. It's really terrific. And
I support Democratic candidates that I personally know. And right now in Iowa we have a struggle, and we're trying to replace a very, very conservative congressman with a woman named Christy Vilsack. Her husband was the governor of Iowa for 8 years.
Yes.
He's now the Secretary of Agriculture in Washington. But she is sharp, very sharp, and she's got a good handle on the issues, and we need to replace the Republican that serves the northwest part of Iowa.
All right. Well, you know, we should take a break here and catch our breath, and then we'll go into more of what's important. Can we put up a couple of panels there to take a break with, please? Okay, we're back. Thanks for staying tuned. And for you viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals, and about whatever it is that we have decided to talk about. Now, my friend Roger Jacobson and I are going to talk about what's important to talk about nowadays. And there's so many things, and let's see where we go the next half hour.
Okay.
All right. Will you lead off and decide what we should talk about next?
Well, some things that I've come to know about. The American Legislative Exchange Council.
ALEC.
Yeah. And that again reflects the power of the corporate interests The funding comes from those organizations. And as I understand, they write model laws that are then passed on to state legislators for action. And the perspective is laws that serve corporate interest, of course. And
what about individuals' interests?
yeah, well, we want to require everybody to have a photo ID when they go to the polls, of course. And that limits who can vote. And it seems like that's wrong to me. They want to combat something called voter fraud. And I don't think there is voter fraud, or there isn't much of it anyway. We don't hear about voter fraud.
It's so minimal, yes.
Yeah, that to eliminate, they're estimating maybe as many as 5 million voters by putting up this barrier that requires them to have a photo ID when they go to the polls to vote.
Why would they do that?
Well, they want to block the interest, of course, of the human citizens.
Yeah, the minorities and the poor people who are less likely to have photo IDs, so then they can't vote, right?
Well, there are a lot of older Americans that don't have a driver's license and don't have a photo ID. So that eliminates them unless we can get them to the polls.
So those people would more likely vote a liberal or Democratic or...
Well, I think they would vote their own interests. And their interest is not the same as the interest of the powers that be in a plutocracy. So we need change.
Plutocracy.
Yeah.
Do you think America is an empire?
You know, I'm not even sure what empire means, but we certainly dominate. And it's this whole business of gosh, can't think of the term now. Anyway, manifest destiny.
Destiny, yeah.
Manifest destiny.
That's the original idea behind the American empire. But there was a French empire and a British empire, and we know this is when a nation moved around the world to occupy and use the resources and the populations of different countries for its own economic interests for the super rich. And there are some people who believe that America is behaving now like the old empires of the past.
Well, it certainly is, yeah.
And like all other empires in history, there's some speculation now that the American empire is in decline now. And I think that the leadership in our country, the economic leaders who really run things, are interested in continuing their domination of the economy, of the system, and using you and I, ordinary citizens, as just instruments toward their acquiring more wealth and more power. And that can take me off in all sorts of other directions right now. I want the American empire to disappear, but I want it replaced with a real democracy. I belong to the Democratic Socialists of America.
Yeah.
I'm a democratic socialist.
Yeah.
And
that's an organization that I also belong to.
I should have known.
Yeah,
And as poor as Cuba is, they have a form of socialism. And some people, when I talk about Cuba, they say, well, that's communist Cuba. That's a far cry from Stalinist Russia, that kind of communism. So the only solution for our survival as a nation or as a people is some form of socialism where ordinary citizens are taken care of and have a better way of living instead of having the wealth of our society go to the super rich so that they can have a fourth or fifth vacation home or a bigger yacht.
Yeah.
So I think the American empire is in decline, and I'm so old where I won't see it. But I don't want to see America disappear. I've also traveled enough to know that, hey, there's no place in the world that I'd rather be than in my own country here in America.
Yeah. It certainly offers many advantages.
Yeah.
There's a degree of stability. There's a court system that works pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And but we're very lucky, Don, you and I.
Yes, we are.
My kids and their families struggle, and in my family, at least, I think maybe we're at the turning point where, you know, you always hope that your kids did better than you did.
Yes.
And I don't think they have the opportunities now, and I hope to help them in some ways to overcome some of those difficulties. But it looks to me like it's downhill.
It's so utterly outrageous. It's so gradual, the change, until people don't realize it. It's like someone said, when you put a crab in a pot of hot water and you increase the temperature slowly, he doesn't know he's cooking.
Yeah.
When we can't get health care in our country, and there's so many things that people in other countries take for granted, that are just totally out of whack in this country.
Sure. I remember in class some years ago, it was probably 15, 18 years ago at least, I had read that the projection is that Americans will have fewer resources in their family. They'll live in smaller places. They'll drive smaller cars. They'll take shorter vacations. They just won't have the opportunity. And I'm addressing a group of students, and I can't remember if that was perhaps an introduction to business or management, or it might have been economics, but this one kid sitting about the second seat back from me he says, if times are getting tougher, he said, I'm in real trouble. And at the time, I was probably more a capitalist and had more faith that the system could work for all of us. I do think that the profit incentive is important. But there was a time, I think, when business people had a greater compassion for their workers and the community they were in. And now it seems to be driven from some office far off. Too much combinations, too many really big companies, and I like to support local.
Yeah.
But I think it's true. Our kids have more difficulty in an economic system than we did, and geez, I am a long ways from wealthy.
Yeah.
But at least I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
And I suspect that you are too.
Yes.
You get to travel some, and I don't see that opportunity for my kids at this point. Now things could change.
And it needn't be that way.
Yeah.
What's the reason for the Occupy movement?
Well, people are getting ticked off at the system that they see now is against them.
Yeah.
And the benefits all go to and are geared to serve the needs for profit. The dividends for the next quarter have to be higher than the dividends now. So you tighten the screws and you try and make the business more efficient. Maybe you fire more experienced staff and replace them with younger, inexperienced. Or if you can, you replace them with machines that work 24/7.
And humans are just by the wayside.
Yeah.
Citizens are.
And the key factor is greed. How can we make more money next quarter?
So I think I know who you're going to vote for in the presidential election, but you and I have been getting along pretty fine here, but I'm going to have a fight with you right now.
Okay.
You're going to probably vote for Obama.
Yeah.
And do you think Obama is going to be different in his second term than in his first term?
I hope so. And I think maybe there's a chance he would be. I think that I'm disappointed in Obama's first term.
Yeah.
And I think that he could have made grander use of the bully pulpit.
Yes.
But you have to also realize that he was against the party of no. And the party of no, their first goal is, let's end Obama's administration with a 4-year term. We don't want to reelect him. We don't want him to be reelected. So.
Right.
So that was their #1 goal. So anything they could do to throw a monkey wrench in to subvert the lawmaking process so that it made him look bad, I think we have to keep that in mind. I will vote for Obama, and I think in the second term he's not looking for re-election. And I think he'll be a stronger president. I'm hoping he will be.
If he takes positions that are more liberal or more left than he has so far, I think there's a chance that, sad to say, they took out JFK and Martin Luther King, and people who were too liberal or too left, they were assassinated by the right wing. And I think Obama wants to stay alive. And it's happened in the past. It can happen again. There's a lot of people who would like to kill him.
Oh, yeah.
And I think he's doing a balancing act, among other reasons, that he's taking the positions that he's taken so far in critically important political and social issues. But I'm going to vote for Rocky Anderson, hopefully some 4 or 8 or 12 years downstream, when I'm gone, then this new party that's an
the
alternative.
Justice Party.
Yeah, an alternative to the 2 existing parties, which are really 2 wings of the same party, the Carpet Party. I get into some pretty heated discussions sometimes with people about saying I'm not going to vote for Obama this time around. But it takes all kinds to make the soup tasty.
Yeah, I know. I guess in my mind, a vote for anybody other than Obama is not a powerful statement.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be 1 of 2 people elected. It'll be the Republican candidate or the Democratic. And I think there are really good candidates out there representing other parties. But I would hate to see happen what I think happened in Florida. What is it now, 13, 12, 11 years ago?
Yeah.
And a man who I in my mind I think of as a spoiler. And
Nader?
Yeah. Now he created an organization that I still support today.
Public Citizen.
Yeah, and you know, it's I don't think he's directly involved in any way, but it's a good organization, and I'm glad we have Public Citizen. But I think without his candidacy in Florida, we might have had a different president when Bush went to the White House.
I think what you said is a result of the corporate media's information for the ordinary citizens, because if I'm not sure the result would have been different if Nader did not run for the presidency. They were determined to steal that presidency at that point in time. The Supreme Court did it. If it weren't for Nader, there'd be some other reason they would steal it. But I'm thinking about the civil rights movement, women's suffrage, and voting rights, and all those kinds of things, and the Vietnam War. They started off small, and it took years sometime for them to come to fruition and to get the change that we wanted. And all those kinds of revolutionary ideas always start small, and it's got to start somewhere. The question is practical versus principle. And I can be practical only so far, but I want to see things moving in a better direction for ordinary citizens so that my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren can get education that's free until they go as far as they want to in postgraduate work, like we're doing in so-called communist Cuba and so many socialist countries in Europe. And health care, what are two most essential things we can have for the citizenry? Health care from the cradle to the grave.
Yes, and education.
Free education.
Yeah.
And we don't have them in this wonderful experiment called America.
Yeah.
It's totally out of whack.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got a drink of water on that.
Good. No, I agree with you. And I've seen in an area that's, in fact, I came to Portland in 2004 to work on a ballot initiative called Measure 36, and I worked on the no side to try to defeat that constitutional amendment that defined marriages between a man and a woman. But you know, if you go back 20 or 25 years in this country, the situation is extremely different for gay and lesbian persons.
Yes.
And in fact, I married and was in a gay marriage, or I mean, not a gay marriage, and I was in a marriage for 29 years, a straight marriage for 29 years. That probably shouldn't have happened. And that was, you know, my greatest regret is the deception that I played on my spouse.
Yes.
Who was a good woman, and the deception I played on myself. But there's been such huge change. I mean, 15 years ago, when I was still teaching in a public high school, I helped a couple of young people, a young woman and a young man, create the first gay-straight alliance in an Iowa high school.
Good for you.
And I'd been teaching a course in human sexuality, and one of my students was the young woman, and I said, Gina, there should be a group at Ames High School for gay and lesbian students and their friends. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, she came to me with this huge document from Massachusetts where they already had gay-straight alliances.
You were way ahead of the time.
Well, I let her do it. She's a very, very persuasive and charismatic young woman, very articulate. And she'd work with the principal, and then she'd come back and we'd chat and we'd talk about it. And then she'd go to the principal again, and he wasn't really in favor. But he knew that he couldn't stop us. You know, we could have this organization along with many other organizations in the school. And when we had our first meeting, there were 75 kids that showed up.
Really?
And this is in a high school of, I think it was about 1,400 at that time. So they had a lot of support, and that was a big change. But there have been so many changes. I mean, Iowa has gay marriage, and we've had it for 3 years. And it's changing all over. It's changing in Washington. These are things that people didn't even think about 20 years ago. I mean, it was just totally outside the realm of possibility.
So that's why those kinds of things start small, and that's an example of what I'm talking about.
Oh, sure.
And I'm back to grinding my axe again about Rocky Anderson. If not him, somebody else is going to come along.
Yeah.
And iron rusts. Things change. This Democrat Republican Party, this duopoly, the two wings of the same party, are going to go by the wayside like every damn thing else. And I want to be part of the cutting edge of where the change is going to happen. Change is going to happen.
Yeah, I think that will happen, Don. I'm doing it through support of organizations that are on the front line working. And I realize that the Justice Party is one of those groups. But to me, civil rights and economic change and human rights are very important. I'm funding those organizations and hoping that they can have an impact on the powers that be, and maybe move the Democratic Party away from the Republican Party. I think we have a common goal in mind.
I know we do. I know we do. But the Democratic Party is a far cry from what it was under FDR.
Oh, absolutely.
Or even Lyndon Johnson's Democratic Party.
Yeah.
It's so far removed from what needs to be done.
And you know, the Republican Party is a very different party.
Oh, yes.
I have several good friends that were Republicans, and they feel like the party was just stolen right out from underneath them.
That's right.
And they started to bow and kowtow to other interests. And
I remember Jacob Javits and Everett Dirksen. These were fine gentlemen, Republicans. You wouldn't think that nowadays there'd be fringes as far as the Tea Party Republicans are concerned now.
Yeah.
Well, time is running out on us, so I want to ask you about a couple of things anyhow. What's going to happen in Syria? That's a dilemma.
Well, I think the United States is kind of in the hot seat. You know, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Yeah.
I just hope that they're able to drive Assad out, and you know.
But what will be the replacement for Assad?
Well,
that's what I'm afraid of.
What's the replacement in Egypt? What's the replacement in Libya? You know, these are still works in progress.
And you know, the works in progress means the American influence and the CIA and those people are working behind the scenes to be sure that administrations come into power that are supportive of American imperial interests.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the American empire again. Colonialism the world around. And I'm not an isolationist. I think we need to have relations with the rest of the world.
Yes, of course.
But we don't need to dominate. And my son and his wife lived in Germany on a military base. I went and spent a month. But there are military bases, U.S. military bases, all over Germany. And the Germans love it. Because there are so many Germans that are employed by the United States Department of Defense.
Yes.
They work on the bases, they run the bases, and they want us there. They like the money, and it costs us a hell of a lot of money every year.
Oh, yeah.
Bases all over the world. Idiocy. We can't be the world's policeman.
And we are. So, anyhow, do you have a message for the viewers that you want to leave them with before we sign off? You know, talk to them in camera 3 there. What's the final thoughts you have for the viewers tonight?
I would just, hi Mike, I would just say it's important that you educate yourself about the issues. And it's important that you look at both sides. If you tune into only one side, you get a one-sided perspective. And if people are lying to you, you don't know it. But if you actually look at, you know, both sides or many sides of an issue, there's a better opportunity, I think, for you to make a good decision. In fact, I remember being involved in experiments where groupthink came out with a better answer, a better solution than individuals, you know, thinking for themselves and then you know, voting. So if you get together and look at different perspectives, that's one of the reasons I like SSI. We can see other people's perspectives and begin to understand that there's more than one answer. Well, there are many answers.
Yeah. Thanks very much. So we're going to sign off, otherwise Dave Mendenhall is going to yell at me over there.
Okay.
It's close to time for us to stop visiting and get ready to say goodnight, so keep those pens and pencils handy because you may want to jot down something that we'll show you in the closing credits. And thanks for watching. Okay, we got to give you some public service announcements here. To get the Dr. Don local broadcast schedule, I guess you're going to go to how to watch the show on the web. Go to www.donbaham.com and click on favorite links to watch my TV show on the web. Next public service announcement we want to tell you about is The ACLU. Yay, the American Civil Liberties Union. Are you an ACLU member?
I just told you I am.
Yes, you did.
It's one of the longest organizations I've been involved in supporting.
Without the ACLU, our civil liberties would be in more disarray than they are now with this present administration and the previous administration. Go to that website and learn about the ACLU. Next PSA is to get Dr. Don shows broadcast by other stations. Ask your local public access station where you are in this country to go to www.pegmedia.org. And now, last but not least, corporate personhood. To end corporate personhood, which we must do to save our democracy, go to www.movetoamend.org. That's so critically important. Before we say goodnight, I want to say thank you to Mike, the postman, and Dave and Bill in the control room, aggravating Ellery, our director. Thanks, Mr. E, for directing for us. And thanks to you viewers in other parts of the country. Oops, I got to tell you about KFC. Not Kentucky Fried Chicken. Dr. Don's KFC. Kind, friendly, and charitable. That's KFC. Be kind, be friendly, and be charitable to you and you and you and you. And thanks again for watching. See you next time. Goodbye.